Rob Gray, Marianne Marsh, thank you for joining us. So obviously huge news this evening.
Yeah, let's start by talking about this VP pick. Marianne, I want to get your take on it. I'll echo the question I just asked Sharman. Are you surprised by J.D. Vance?
No, I mean, a couple things. First, Don Jr. has been pushing J.D. Vance for the better part of a year, number one. Number two, in recent presidential history, presidential candidates pick a vice president who is the opposite of them. Obama picked Biden, Trump picked Pence. Biden picked Kamala Harris. Now you have Donald Trump picking J.D. Vance for working poor, working class, blue collar appeal that his story brings to that ticket. And the last point is, now that Trump owns the Republican Party and it is a fully MAGA party, J.D. Vance is the bridge to the continuation of MAGA through the Republican Party going forward. So I think that explains this pick for this election cycle.
Well, and Rob, a young pick at that, just 39 years old. Marianne talking a bit about his background, his appeal to working class people. If you could talk a little bit about his biography and why that might be so appealing.
Well, he wrote a bestseller. He's been in the Senate only for 2 years. So I actually think that it's a bit hard to argue that he's qualified, even as a Republican, but it's not going to matter. We see that the Republican Party is behind him. He was in finance before that. He did some time in the military. Obviously an intelligent guy. He went to Yale Law School. But I think what this comes down to is not Ohio, where he's from, but two states that border Ohio, Pennsylvania and Michigan. If Trump wins one of those, they're full of working class white voters. He is guaranteed to be president. And although the polls are looking good, J.D. Vance is an extra insurance policy for Trump.
And so we have you both on today also because, I've had the privilege of sitting down at the OTR table with both of you, week after week. And we know you disagree on a number of different topics, but you can do so in an agreeable fashion. And of course, after what happened over the weekend, the assassination attempt, that's something that a lot of us in this country are taking a second look at. So, Rob, I'll start with you on this one. What do you think is the key to keeping discussions in this country more civil?
Well, it's become hard with social media and online fundraising. Really, people in both parties are incentivized to put out edgy rhetoric that raises money for their political causes to get reelected. That's true of people in Congress, and it's true of Trump and Biden, unfortunately. I would like to see folks in Washington in leadership positions go back to bipartisan social events, having regular lunches together, talking about family, talking about hobbies, so that they can get beyond some of that and compromise. One of the reasons governors are so popular running for president is that they do compromise. They get things done in their states. Washington hasn't had to do that lately, and it's led to the, partisan boxing fights that we have day in and day out.
Well, and Marianne, your take on that as well. I mean, the former president Donald Trump has said, and his sons have said today, that he plans to talk about unity and that he will be changing his tone. Do you believe that will happen? And do you believe that the country can unify when you consider just how divided it is now?
I'm an optimist by nature, so anything is possible. I don't think Donald Trump got off to the best start when he posted on Truth Social this morning and asked to be absolved of everything. J.D. Vance, who we just picked for vice president on Saturday, posted that it was Joe Biden who's the reason that Donald Trump had the attack on him. I think we have to see what he says on Thursday and hope that happens. But Joe Biden's clearly trying to set the tone here, and I hope he continues it. He has over the weekend. He has an interview going on tonight. I'm sure he will continue to talk about it. But just one other point. This has been a long time coming. This has been a long runway of the gas burners turning up on the vitriol and the hatred on everything. And it's not necessary. But the problem now is when you look at everybody, they just want to get in a fight. It's all about fighting. And I read an anecdote today about Tip O'Neill when Ronald Reagan was shot. To Rob's point of, being friends outside of work and talking about hobbies and families and all that. Tip O'Neill went to the hospital when Ronald Reagan was shot with tears in his eye, held his hand, kissed it, got on his knees and prayed for him. And as that shouldn't feel unusual today, but it's hard to imagine that happening. So I think there's a lot more we can do here, and we all need to model that behavior. And by the way, everyone who comes on OTR, most of them, federal, state, local elected officials across the country and in Massachusetts, most of them come with security details now.
Yeah.
And that is